if you've ever said to yourself, man, I just want a different life. Man, I just want things to change. You are always one decision away from an entirely different life. And the beautiful thing is that power is in your lap. So let's talk about that right now. Check it out. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Positivity Experience. It's your girl, Lori, and I'm excited that you are here. I am actually looking outside right now at the rain, and we finally got a little bit of rain, so hopefully that will be good. It's always interesting, side note, it's always interesting how, we're always like, oh my God, it rains too much. It doesn't rain enough. It's kind of like that curly hair, straight hair thing where you always want what you don't have. So today we are having a little bit of balance, which is good, and you can decide on how it is that you see that. So one decision away is always going to be rooted in your mindset. And I got to tell you, if you've ever looked at what's the secret to life, it's going to be your mindset, because how you see things is how you live life. It's how you respond to things. And it's interesting because next week, to kind of follow through with this one, is the very next week, what we're going to talk about is creating healthy habits and sticking to them and why you don't have those habits. And a lot of that is going to come from here. So I wanted to do this podcast first so you can understand about the decisions in which you make, right? So every day we have a choice. Every single day we have a choice. And so what I did over on Patreon is I created a worksheet for you so you can understand different areas and different mindset switches that you can have, whether it's a toxic work environment, a relationship. It's a decision. You decide if you're going to accept it. You decide if you're going to make an effort. You decide these things. So if you're looking for a good place to start, because again, I've said this multiple times, often, we all listen to things and we watch things and we hope that we can figure it out. We get this magic answer, and there's not necessarily a magic answer anywhere, but it's great to have a place to start and have some good prompts. And that's what the podcast is over on Patreon. It just kind of complements this one. If that is your jam, hop on over to patreon.com/the positivity experience or follow the link here. And that will just give you an extra episode, just to kind of give you places to start, because I did that because of me. And how I learn, and I like to kind of see it visually and do all of that versus just listen. So if that's your jam, great. If not, let's go here. And it's important because this was the difference in my life, and why part of the reason I went into this as a profession, to be honest with you. It was the mindset of woe is me, why is this sucks, all of those things, to kind of just saying, oh, well, I guess it is what it is. I'm just going to bitch and complain about it here because I don't know any other way. So I didn't decide to want to figure out what that other way was. It was a decision. Now, let's cover the basis before we even begin this conversation. Yes, depression is a thing. Bipolar, schizophrenia, ADHD, all of these things can make things a little bit more challenging, but it's how you see it. What decision are you going to make, right? Are you going to decide like, hey, you know what? This is really holding me back. My depression is holding me back. My ADHD is a problem. Do something about it. Do something about it. Okay, this doesn't mean you have to snap your fingers, and it's just going to happen. But you look for the problem solved, not the problem itself. So that's going to be the first decision. But I wanted to kind of get that out of the way because I know a lot of people will be like, yeah, but that's easy when you don't have depression. That's when you need this more. That's when you need these decision making. That's when you need it more than the person who doesn't have it. And I'm telling you that from a person who has and bottomed out tremendously and have had incredible things that were almost like crippling in mental nature. And it's how you see it. And you are one decision away from having a whole different life. Now, does that mean it's going to be better? Maybe, maybe not. Because it's going to be based on your decisions. And the fact that the decision isn't a one and done, which is why I have the healthy habits coming up next week. Because whatever you decide, and think about that, you get to decide, right? Let's use it as like a stoplight. You're at a stoplight and the light is red, the light is yellow, light is green. It's not flashing, it's solid. Okay, well, green, you're like, okay, I'm choosing to go because it's green. You choose to stop at a red light. You could choose to go through it, but you're like, you know what? That's probably not the best thing. Don't want to get a ticket, don't want to get hit, don't want to hit somebody. You're making a choice. So you made a choice based on what was best for you then. So you got to do that in real life too, because that's external. So what is the benefit of making these decisions for yourself? Well, inner peace. We are all seeking inner peace, and at no point is that said external peace. At no point did your inner peace go, well, if this marriage works out better, I'm going to have inner peace. No, it's inner peace. It's not external happens and then I have inner peace. Power of choice is amazing. You choose your reactions. Nobody on the planet can make you react. Oh, they can tempt you. They can scratch the scab. You are in charge of that. No human being can change your mindset. You are in charge of that. Those are two things nobody can take from you. I don't care who it is. They can't take your mindset from you and they can't change your reactions. Okay? But you are responsible. This is so important because then you'll be able to understand how to make decisions based in this. You are responsible for your own happiness and state of mind. That is your responsibility. And this is what I think happens too, is I think early on, we don't feel as though we have a mind of our own, right? Because ultimately, sometimes we don't. Now, for me, I'm 53 years old, so I was in that, not to be like back in my day, but kinda, right? Back then, God, that made me sound like a grandparent, but so back then it really was, you didn't really have a mind. This is what you do. This is what you believe in. This is what you worship. This is what you vote. So you're kind of on autopilot. So a lot of you listening to this, even if you didn't grow up then, you could be 20, you could be 90. It doesn't matter. You grew up with some level of I can't have my own mind, right? Because if you had an opinion and somebody didn't like it, they were like, hey, that's not what we do here. You're like, wait, what don't we do here? Oh, wait, I don't feel that way. What do you mean I don't feel that way? So I want you to know why this is happening and be compassionate with yourself. Okay. So this is even deciding down to what restaurant you're going to eat at. Some people have a hard time deciding. Some people have decision fatigue where they're like, I don't know where I want to go. And you're like, okay, well, you asked if we could go to dinner. Yeah. Okay. Well, where do you want to go? I don't care. What? We'll make a decision. Right? So decisions can come down to that. It can come down to something as simple as that. So, but it's you are in control of that state of mind and the idea and understanding that you create your own happiness. Because here's the other thing while we're talking about happiness. Happiness is not blanket for everybody. And happiness is not external. Those things can make it a much better, prettier cake, but you're the cake. Right? You can get the icing and the sprinkles and all the little fun stuff and it looks gorgeous. Doesn't mean anything. That icing and stuff is just bleh if the cake isn't there. So what you have to remember is you are the cake. Nothing external is going to make you happy. You happy. It doesn't happen. Whether you want to believe it or not, that is a fact. It's not an opinion. It's not a woo-woo thing. You might be like, but when they're good, I'm good. Yeah, that's not inner happiness still. That's attachment. Okay, you cannot control external circumstances, but you can control your reactions. That's hard for the person who needs control. For the person who needs control, they don't want to hear that. They're like, but this can make me happy. No. Because if you put your happiness into another human being, a situation, a job, a dollar sign, that can be taken away from you like this. Literally. If you put it into a person, the person leaves, now you're like, oh my God, who am I? What do I have? You start to spiral out of control because your whole identity is gone. Your whole inner peace is gone because you gave it away. So number one is inner peace. Why you want to make these decisions is that. Okay. And mindfulness is going to be your key. Mindfulness is going to be through meditation, through breathing, and it leads to reduced stress. Why is that important? Because if you are looking to make a decision based on the past or what you fear in the future, you're going to have to be really careful of that because you're either reacting from a place of hurt or stress or fear from the past or fear from the unknown. So before you can even understand what kind of decision you want to make, you're going to have to stay here, right? Because essentially, and it's kind of odd, It's not odd, but it's something that you learn in human behavior. And it kind of makes you question everything like, well, good Lord, what's real? Like, where am I? Because everything prior to the beginning of this podcast is gone, right? Done. It is a memory. The start of this podcast is a memory. The relationship that you had with somebody at the restaurant last week is a memory. So these are your memories. They are not facts. Yeah, the fact is you met this person at McDonald's. Fact. Your feeling is not fact. It was just a memory in that moment. Because that's why feelings aren't facts. And if you really think of it that way, I don't know if it's going to help your stress or cause more, but it's important to know that everything that you're thinking of that isn't in this present moment, that hasn't happened yet, that doesn't count, is a memory. All right. And when you can look at it that way and put it into perspective, you're not necessarily carrying it with you. It's a cherished moment or a moment that you're glad the hell that you got out of it. So if you can look at things as a memory versus something that is holding you down, it's going to help a lot with this making a decision. Because what will happen is you'll be like, well, grandma said, okay, grandma's not been here on this planet for about 15 years. And that was then. That was a moment in time then. You don't have to bring that forward. And I think that's where the problem comes in at, because you're trying to make a decision based on what you think it should be and based on the fear of the things that could happen. Listen, if you're not willing to walk into the unknown, you are always going to remain stuck. That's just how it is. Life is largely out of your control. Minus the mindset and your reactions, life's pretty much out of your control. So if you focus on that and you stress too much about it, that's why the mindfulness and all of that stuff goes into play. So let me give you an example of a choice of letting go. Probably one of the number one questions, one of them is, but how do you let go? Well, you accept. Let go of what? We're not holding on to a rope, right? Like I'm currently holding a pen because I shoot this for YouTube as well. I'm holding a pen. Now, if I let go of the pen, that's going to drop because it's a tangible thing. A memory, a person, they're not tangible because, a person's tangible, but you don't own them. And the memory is not tangible. It's just a memory. So to let go of something is to lower the fact that your expectations on what you think it should be or what you wanted it to be or what you fear it wouldn't be is what it is. Life is what it is, but what are you going to do with it now? You'll see a lot of this, and I went through, God, I told you before, I was like the biggest victim mentality person in my middle to late teens, probably up till my early 20s, mid-20s, let's say mid-20s, of just chronically, oh my God, complaining and wishing and wanting and hit the lottery and da-da-da-da. Like you do these things. And that's a deciding factor in how I lived my life. It's a choice. I chose to look at myself as a victim state as to why did my mom die? Why was the molestation? Da, 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 da. Okay, I got it. We've been on the merry-go-round a lot, bro. Like it's time to get off of the merry-go-round. It is what it is. So what am I going to do with that now? And that was a decision to let go of anything that I felt people wronged me in, or let go of this idealization that I should have had this great like family dynamic, which it was anything but, right? And then you start to, again, you start to put everything up on this pedestal. And then when it comes down, you're like, wait, what the hell just happened? And now you're upset. So you get to decide right now. It's a decision. It is a decision to let go of the past and focus on the present. Yes, I understand you might have Puro, which is the obsessive part of OCD. I understand you might have high anxiety. I understand these things. I get it. I'm not saying that those things aren't real. Again, how are you going to see it? I can't do this because that's a victim state. Or is it going to be like, okay, this might be a little bit more challenging because of my obsessive thoughts, but this is where those 5 journals come in. Okay. It is a decision to let go. Everybody wants this to be so much more complex. Well, you do this and you do that. And it's radical acceptance. Without that acceptance, you're going to keep spinning out and spinning out and spinning out. You decide if you're going to let this go. Oh, but this feeling, Now we're back on feelings. Valid, but why are we getting geared in by our feelings? I know, but if I let it go, then I'm permissing. No, if you don't let it go, they're still controlling you. You're not permissing anything. That's this ego thing you got going. Well, if I don't let these things, if I let these things go, these people are going to have gotten away with it versus what? Holding on to it and losing sleep over it and not trusting people again. How's that working out for you? Those people don't have to remain in your life. It's also not your job to be the savior of everybody else who's going to encounter this person. They may have a very different relationship or experience with that person. So you decide right now if you're going to let go of the past and focus on the present or not. This decision frees you up like nobody's business. It gives you so many more opportunities. You're not looking at it from an emotional state of, but I wish it was different, but it's my mom, and now you're creating all of these excuses. No, if it's not serving your best and highest good, then it shouldn't be in your life. But that's a decision you make. Think about this. Everything I'm telling you about in 95% of my podcast is always going to be about putting it back into your lap. You're in control, your accountability, your decision making. Hello, this is a great thing. Great thing. This means you have way more power than you think you do. You have way more power than what you think you do because you're giving your power away. You don't want to let this go. You're too concerned at this. So now you paint yourself into a little corner and you can't get out of it. Now you're mad at everybody. Okay, so that's a big thing. Self-compassion. Okay, self-compassion is going to have to be there. You're not going to just knock it out of the park. You're going to have to be okay with hurting somebody's feelings. You're going to have to be okay with feeling uncomfortable. So give yourself self-compassion. Because without that, nobody on the planet has ever bullied themselves into being a better person. No one's ever sabotaged and ridiculed themselves. Nobody. To be this better person. Because you got to be careful. What are you striving for? Because if it's perfection, that's not real. So it's a deciding factor. Listen, I understand it didn't start there with you. I get it. But it's a decision right now for you to say, am I going to keep blaming my childhood? Am I going to keep blaming those things? That is an actual thing that happened. Valid. That is a reason that things are much harder for you today. Valid. However, once that's it. That's all that's valid about it. To carry it and drag it and carry it and drag it and want it to be different and wish it could have been different is going to be the decision that you have to make to say, I don't want to live this way anymore. It is a decision. Nobody on the planet is going to get help and do what's best for them until they want to do it. And honestly, it's until you're tired of your own shit. If you're not tired of it, then it's going to continue. All right. You can't have it both ways. You cannot have it both ways. You can't be like, well, I want it to be different, but I want to do the work. Okay. It's a decision. And that's why this one came before the good habits one, because you're going to have to hear this is a decision. If you want change, you got to change it. If you want a different result, you have to decide right now, I want a different result, which means I'm going to do all the legwork I can do to figure out this new way of life. You got to live like the person you want to be. You got to live like the person you want to be, not the person you don't want to be. That's where it's going to get real cognitive dissonance inside of your head. You're going to have one thought and the actions are going to be totally different. Okay. And this is where decisions in relationships come into play. Boundary setting is a decision, and it's one that you always want to do for yourself every single time. All right. So in any relationship, friendship, parent, coworker, boundary setting, healthy boundaries are to protect your emotional well-being and balance. Okay. You are able to protect your own well-being. Think about that. For a long time, you didn't even know what your well-being was, much less being able to take care of it. No, you had no clue. Now you can. Now you can. Piss people off. Please do that. Please make that a mission to piss people off while you are working on yourself. Don't just piss people off for nothing. You put those boundaries up, let them be angry. You put those boundaries up, let them call you extra and rude. That's what you do. It's a decision. Are you willing to make the decision to make you a better person today? Are you willing to decide that that person's life, kid, not kid, is not yours to manage as they're an adult? It is not yours to manage. And if you sit there and you go, well, they keep calling you and you keep answering the phone. If you're not willing to set a boundary, that is a decision. If you're not willing to be the villain, that is a decision. This is why communication is going to come. You get to decide your level of communication. You don't get to decide somebody else's level of communication, right? So somebody can be a great communicator. Other people, not so much. I don't know if you've ever tried to talk to somebody and you're like, oh my God, yeah, hi, I just went to the city and I had such a good dinner. Oh, that's nice. Oh, okay. Well, what did you do? Nothing. Okay. What are you going to do this weekend? I don't know. Oh, okay. So now you're the one trying to pull this out, right? You're trying to pull conversation out from the person who isn't very communicative. Maybe it's shyness. Maybe it's, I don't know. It's something. You can't determine them, but you can you. So you make the decision on the level of communication in which you want to give somebody. Okay. Now, getting out of a relationship that is toxic for you is a choice and a decision. And yes, I understand that there could be trauma bonding. There could be attachments. There usually is, by the way. All of these things. But are you deciding to live differently? Are you allowing yourself to feel inconvenienced by the accountability of having to figure out the solution? And listen, sometimes there ain't going to be a solution. Not so much in a toxic relationship. There is a solution in that. But in other things, you might be like, well, damn. Well, hell, I can't change that at all. Then guess what you got to do? Accept it. Right? If you want somebody to take ownership by something that they did in a relationship, but they never do, want it all you want. But it's not going to happen. So in a toxic relationship, you have to ask yourself, is this relationship serving my best and highest good? This is a decision on what amount of investing I want to do in this relationship. Do you want to close that account? Okay, look at people's accounts. Do you want to close that account? Then maybe you close it. Sometimes you're going to take the L because of the stock market. Well, it is what it is. Still close that account. However, with the relationships that are healthy for you and contributing to you and your growth, those are the ones you invest. Oh, new stocks. Let me invest in these. It's always a risk. But so what? So you have to know what your risk assessment is. And you have to say, okay, how much am I willing to contribute? Contribute. Hello, I'm from contribute. Contribute, because apparently I'm making up my own language now. And that's the important factor is so many times you're trying to fix and understand these people who aren't in your best space. And you keep throwing money in the well. And you're like, damn it, I'm not getting a ROI. There's no return on my investment. There's not gonna be, because it's not worth investing in. And again, stop trying to make it make sense. If it's a parent, a sister, okay, just because they are related to you doesn't mean that you have to make that extra investment. It's still pissing money out the window. So what are you going to invest in? It's a decision, right? It's a decision. And just one of those decisions can change your life. One. So start adding in a bunch of decisions. You're like, oh my God, like, oh, this is like a roller coaster ride. Preferably don't make a gajillion different decisions at one time. Okay, overall acceptance is a decision. Deciding to accept life as it is rather than how you want it to be is not just a master key. It's a serious amount of confidence and growth mentality. I don't care how you want it to be. I don't care how I want it to be. It's how it is. What can I do about it? I can decide right now on my list, for me and people around me, what do I want from this relationship? What do I want from life? What do I want in this world? What do I want? And then I get to decide the level of investment or detachment that I'm going to need. But I decide that. right? If you're in a fawn response, people pleasing, which we know is a trauma response, you're going to have to decide if you want to get out of that. Don't be the martyr. Well, but I do it for everybody. Don't do that. That's manipulation. We are not going to play that game. We are not going to do that. And you can decide right now if you're going to put yourself as a priority. It's a decision. It's one that you deserve, by the way, but it is a decision. And, you got to be able to adapt to change. Life is, I tell you one thing, that's one consistent that you can bank money on. You ever want to put money and go, okay, I need to hit the lottery? This is what you're investing your money in. Change is inevitable. Change is inevitable. Fight it, don't like it, hate it. It's going to happen. That's what change is. If you can't adapt to it, that's where you find people who go, okay, plan A. I just have plan A. Plan A. Okay. Well, I don't know. The wheels of the bus fall off on plan A. And then you're like, oh my God, what do I do? No, I'm not asking you to just assume things aren't going to work. You don't have to put in plan B through Z, but you can adapt to it. Adapting. It was funny. Just 2 weeks ago, I think I might even mentioned it here. If not, I know I did on Instagram. But my son, I had left him, came back home. I was recording a podcast and he calls me and he was down at the Ocean City. And I was like, that's weird. I just left you. And he never calls me. Unless it's important or unless we were talking about something. It's usually text. So I was like, that's weird. I just left you. Okay, maybe I forgot something. And he told me how him and some girlfriends, just girls who are friends of his, went down to the beach. And as he was getting down to park, the tire sensor went off and his tire went completely flat, probably hit a nail or something. And that could have derailed that whole time. Because then he was like, well, I'm not sure. And I said, well, hold on, let me get us some AAA. I got him AAA. I got out there. It was fine. I said, because he's like, well, I was going to go over here and I was going to go do this and we're going to sit outside and we're going to eat here. And we're going to go to this bar and that bar. I was like, you still can. I said, you absolutely still can. He's like, no, you're right. He said, I'm just going to start it a little bit later. I'll monitor the guy. I'll come back. He can put my stuff on and I'll go back. Was it ideal? No. Did it inconvenience him? Yeah. Did it inconvenience me? Yeah. So what? It is what it is. We're going to bitch and complain about it and bellyache about it. And oh my God, why'd the tire go flat? Okay, it did. And it's adaptability. He adapted right to that and still had a great, great night. It's how you see it and it's a decision that you make. Okay, plan A doesn't work. So what? So if you have a resistance to change, then you have to decide how much control you're willing to let go of. Because it's a decision. And when you decide that, there's an amount of freedom that I can't even begin to tell you what that is. I mean, the perspective and the way you see life becomes so much brighter. So much brighter. Listen, nobody said you can't be annoyed. Nobody said that you can't be like, oh gosh, okay, that sucks. So what? Dust your shoulders off, get up and do it again. It's a decision that you make to say, I've been in this marriage or I've been in this relationship or I've been at this job for 23 years. I've invested a lot of time here. I mean, I don't think I'm happy, but I've invested time. So what? So what? How's that worked out for you? If you are miserable, first of all, check and see if it's miserable because of yourself. Because some of it might be you. Some of it you're creating yourself by having expectations that people aren't meeting and then you're staying in it. So some of that can be you causing it based in attachment, based in fear, okay, cool. But sometimes it's not. A lot of times it's not. A lot of times it's not. So this is why you have to say, okay, is this serving my best and highest good? No. Well, this isn't what I wanted. Well, no, I don't think most people are like, you know what? I think I'm going to do today. I think I'm going to get married. What's a good date to get divorced? I think I'm going to do that in like 4 years on December 19th at 5:00. That's when I think I'll get divorced. Or, you know what? I went into this business and you know what? I'm thinking in 2 years, it's just going to tank. And so I'll just get out. Nobody's doing this. Most people don't go into a relationship. No, it also depends on why you're in the relationship, but most people don't go into a relationship with the idea of the relationship ending. Most people don't do that. 99% of the people don't. So you've got to say, what decision am I going to make? Is it going to be me and my happiness? Or is it going to be me keeping the peace because I don't want to take the effort to make the change, because then the change is uncomfortable and I don't know what's going to happen? You decide. Any way you spin it, it's a decision. Right, wrong, and different doesn't even matter. But if you want different, you got to do different. So what can you do? First of all, you want to identify the areas you want to change in the first place. Not what do you want to change in other people, not what do you want to change for people. What do you want to change for yourself? Evaluate what that impact is going to have on your life. So let me give you an example of that. So you're like, okay, you know what? I want to be more consistent. We'll talk about this. This is in my head because we're going to talk about it next week anyway. But it's like, okay, I want to be healthier, right? Like at first identify that. Like, okay, I want to move my body more. Okay, why? Well, because don't just say for aesthetics, oh, because I'm looking cute in a bikini. I mean, that's fine, but that should never be your why. Weight loss and the way you look should never be your main driving factor for anything that you do. And if it is, and that's a whole different ballgame, you should book a session with me and we'll jump into that immediately, because I want you to know that you're perfectly fine the way you look. And it's always good to tweak. I get my Botox, I do my nailsies, but I do it just because I want to, not because I feel like I have to. And so I think that's the difference. But if you evaluate the impact on, okay, if I move my body and I become healthier, the impact means I'm going to have more stamina. So you have to say, what is the impact for the change you want to make? Why the hell do you want to make the change? And what's the impact to you that you want it to be? And then what actions are you going to take? If you're not going to take an action, stop listening to podcasts, stop reading self-help books, stop going to personal development places, stop sitting there and meditating, stop doing all of that if A, you have an expectation of it fixing you. It's there as a tool. You should never have an expectation this is going to save your life. Nothing should save your life but you. Give you guidance, give you direction, sure. But what actions are you going to take? You could have all the knowledge in the world. If you're not utilizing it, you really don't know it. Why? Because you read it in a book? Why? Because you watched 15 self-help episodes of something and what? How do you really know it unless you put it into action? So what's your action plan? You got to know that once you know the impact. You got to be willing to reflect and adjust. This isn't a one way. You're going to start today and you're in a different mind space than you are 3 months from now. So I like to visit it monthly. I always recommend visiting it monthly in the beginning. Then you do it every 3 months. Even once you got this down to some kind of a science, you're still doing it every 3 months. Because that's how you can adjust and go, okay, well, this is working. Maybe I thought that this was a problem and it isn't. So let me give you a sort of a roadmap, and I'll go deeper in on this in a second over on Patreon, but I want to give you sort of an example of what that would look like, because you want to do a scenario, a decision, and an impact, right? So give yourself a scenario. What decision are you going to make? And then what impact is it going to be? So let's say it's feeling overwhelmed. Okay. The scenarios, you're like, God, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed. Everything is on top of me. So here's a decision that you're going to make. Okay. You can live there, but that's not a decision. That's just living there. A decision is saying, I am going to commit to daily meditation. That's right. I am going to commit to a daily meditation. So you're committing to it. It's like going to get married. You're marrying yourself. I'm going to commit myself to meditating every single day. So that's your decision. Scenario, overwhelm. Decision is I'm going to meditate every day. And then what is the impact of that? Well, over time, it's going to lead to better coping skills and less stress, right? So you get your scenario. Always good to write it down on pen to pad. Don't do this on your iPad. Pen to pad. So, you have your scenario, what decision, and then what's the impact. When you do that, you can start getting clearer without your emotional attachment. Because where it becomes problematic is in that emotional attachment. You're attaching an emotion to a feeling. This isn't about a feeling. This isn't about how is it going to make you feel, other than the fact of this is going to take the stress away from me. You feel overwhelmed. We already know this. But what decision are you going to make unemotionally to look at it back and say, you know what? I am definitely going to commit to blah, blah, blah. And in this case, it's meditating every single day. And you know what? By doing that, you don't go, oh my God, I can't wait for this overwhelm to be gone. Oh God, I can't wait because then I'm going to be in presence. That is the wrong reason. Over time, it is going to provide me a coping mechanism for when I'm overwhelmed over time. But you're not looking at it as a fast fix. That's why bad habits exist. That's why they will always exist until you are willing to let go of instant gratification. And that's a decision. Because again, you have the power. You have it right now. You don't get to decide for somebody else. That's not your job. That's not your responsibility. But you do get to decide for yourself. So as we wrap up, before we jump over on Patreon, I want you to ask yourself, what scenario can you give yourself right now, before you even get off of this? Just think of a scenario and then you can do the rest when you get off. So right now, think of a scenario of something that you want to change right now. Okay, hold that. And then when you hop off here, what decision are you going to make and what impact do you want? Don't make a decision because I don't want to feel this way anymore. Well, that doesn't mean anything. What's the decision? And then what's the impact? And when you do that, you're going to realize exactly how much control you have, how much confidence you have, and how much better your life can actually be.
Check it out.